it becomes a lot more, the range of your choices a lot further. So yeah, maybe there's lots of places you could check out.
I mean, yeah, I would love to. I love a good bike ride to anywhere I'd go. I mean,
Have
that's city life.
So to confirm, basically, have Adway gonna get a new office? Have they decided where they're gonna be, or what? What's the story there?
Yes, and we hope we have Ashling with us on the chat, or perhaps the Cardiff team. Can you give me the location on the new office? It's like signed today. That's why I
Oh,
don't have the exact new address. But
how
I've
exciting!
heard it's really good. It's really cool. Hopefully, that'll be where we meet in our exclusive Adway talks in a couple of weeks, Hung.
Hmm.
So then we'll know more.
Exactly right. Very, very exciting, Sarah. We have to uh, take this conversation offline and talk a little bit more
Yeah, you
because
told me about a party.
we're gonna do it when you arrive, okay?
Okay, cool.
But anyway, we're live, everybody. We are live on Brainfood Live on Air. It is episode 200. I just noticed this. Thank you very much, Michael, for even saying so on the chat
Oh,
stream.
it
It
is.
is episode 200. Can you believe it? It's our bicentennial, is how you call it. We've
Wow.
done 200 live streams on this channel, folks. Thank you so much for all of your support and for following the conversation and, in fact, taking part in the conversation. I am now convinced that the best thing that I can do is to create opportunities for other people to have connections and conversations. So the fact that everyone's piling in and enjoying and getting learning from these types of talks is
Love that.
fantastic. We're going to keep going every week, no fail. So this week, we're going to move it to Thursday. So surprise to everyone who's thinking this might be Friday. But of course, it's Good Friday this week. It's a big, long Easter weekend for a lot of people in Europe. So hence we thought we'd move the event today rather than interfere with people's festivities and what is likely to be a very long weekend for everybody. So, okay, listen, great to see you all here. Let me just do some sound checks real quick. You should see myself and Sarah Dalsfeld on screen. If you can see both of us, please let us know in the chat stream on Crowdcast. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you are, do let me know there whether you can hear and see us okay. Just pop a comment in and say, look, Hung, you're fine, get on with the show. That's all good.
O2 has the coolest studio, you know, such
I
polls.
know. Have you seen Sarah's studio? Is this the point? Can I point this way? I'll
It's
point
not
this
green
way.
screen. Yeah, yeah.
Crazy. I'm
Welcome.
humiliated by this off-white, whatever it is.
I like it. I mean,
Do you know what's going to happen? Once I renovate my property, I'm actually going to spend money and I'm going to hire a street artist to do this work.
oh, yeah. I like what I
And
hear.
I know the
Nice.
guy. There's loads of artists on this area, and I already know the person I want to say. So listen, okay, I'm going to spend a bit of money. You paint me an original on here, and that will be what people will see. Anyway, that's all good.
Cool.
Let's carry on. Sorry, you've actually got a job to do.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to you, you got a couple of things to do because you are also Adway is also the sponsor of this week's show. So we always
Hmm.
say thank you to our sponsors, but now you're also the co-host. You've got an opportunity to tell the audience about Adway, what it is, and why people should care about it.
Yeah. Cool. I would love to. And I would love to hear your pitch as well, Hung. I mean, I love when you pitch Adway. What should I go first?
I think you should just go ahead. You deliver it. The audience wants to hear it from the horse's mouth here.
Okay, let's do it. I'll be the horse. So we at Adway, we've helped over 200 companies around the world solve some of their biggest talent acquisition challenges, basically. And our data is clear. A scalable recruitment strategy is directly dependent on automated social recruitment marketing. We want you to access the entire workforce, and we do this by combining social media job advertising, automation, advanced machine learning software, and expertise. And we connect you with the right talent at the right time with scale and speed. So we want you and we want to tell the story for you, and we showcase your employer brand to attract the next generation of employees. And we want to make something really, really hard to be very, very easy.
That
That's
sounds
us.
exactly what we need. And by the way, folks, there's like been a technical issue, I believe, because LinkedIn disconnected me from Restream just now, and I've
Oh,
reconnected it, and I should still be live. So it may be that it was a break in the programming there. So I beg your pardon. But if you're on LinkedIn and you're watching this there, do let me know. It's super disappointing that happened like literally today. Anyway, let's get on with it. So Sarah, let's talk about this particular topic, because what I wanted to do today was really gather together people who are from a little bit more of a technical background. I think
Yeah.
marketing has always been more technical than recruiting, and also people who are now working for recruitment technology. So yourself and all of our guests today are from that type of sort of arena. And of course,
Best people.
the best people,
Best people.
I was just reviewing it. Like, recruitment has learned so much from marketing in particular. We've learned about
Yeah.
segmentation, we've learned about A/B testing, we've learned about programmatic, we've learned
Mhm.
about the conversion rates. Even, I mean, all of that language and all of that concepts are from marketing. And
Yeah.
so I just thought, okay, this entire tidal wave of AI has hit us. What does all this mean for us? Recruiters are diving in, but what the heck are recruitment marketers doing? What are recruitment technology folks doing? And I guess I wanted to get your view on this, because what are your thoughts on
Should.
AI? And have you applied it as a marketer or as a person in marketing? And is Adway doing anything with it as a product? So I guess
Mm.
there's three questions there.
A great question. And I always emphasize on the fact that we in our industry where we are right now, we have to evolve to become tech comfortable. So whether it's AI, generative AI, machine learning, automation, you have to evolve to become tech comfortable in order to actually, lead the way and be in the forefront. So it's not about being a data scientist or me, sitting with my whole tech team outside the studio knowing everything they know about generative AI. It's just about knowing what questions to ask in order to amplify. So basically, yes, we utilize machine learning software solutions and generative AI in our solution. I'll come more into it. It's more of like how you want to frame it. But basically, we have done everything that we do today manually, and we know how hard it is. So it's literally just amplifying what we already knew and did and making it very, very scalable. So when you're a company like Adway, we do thousands of job advertising campaigns per year. And this is not auto publishing. This is not just take a job title and push it out. This is not Indeed fetching. This is unique creation per each job title for each desired channel. So hence where the smart and intelligent processes comes in. So I would say, just like narrow it down, it could sound like, yeah, human versus the machines, but it's basically about knowing what questions to ask. You can amplify and utilize automation where it's needed, and it's not needed everywhere. Not at all. I would say hands off as soon as possible. The first like percent, if you were to build like a timeline from your candidate journey or your talent attraction phase, hands off as soon as possible, and then you can be human along the way, because then you've assessed, you've attracted, you've had screening questions, you've built a process that's built upon science and the best possible solutions. And when, whether you like it or not, you would have a top 10 segmented audience. And then if you need to use your gut feeling, go ahead, but not when you do job postings.
I think that one of the major sort of issues or concerns that people had was always about, okay, does this like remove the human from the process? And probably the one thing that I'm seeing as a criticism, a common criticism, is that recruitment, it always needs to have the human touch. We always, is such an important sort of decision that people make. You can't just completely run it with a robot or completely automate it. So you can be overly efficient, and that sometimes can actually lead to bad candidate experience, which ultimately is going to result in people not accepting jobs and not paying attention to opportunity. So I think how we've got to play it is really with a sense of balance, and see where technology in general. By the way, I love your phrasing, Sarah. I've subsequently, AI aware, AI friendly. That is
Comfortable.
exactly AI comfortable. This is
Hmm.
exactly the terminology that we need to
Yeah.
adopt, because it's
Yeah.
not about being an expert.
No.
It's not about pretending to be a software engineer, because that's not where
Nope.
we're at. But it's about being, okay, here's a tool, learn how to use it, and then be comfortable with using the tool, because
Or
that's going
try
to help
do
us.
billion advertisers manually. Try me.
Yeah.
Sit in
Or you
business manager, do it manually, and I'll happily look while you work.
you can compare the pain
Yeah.
of doing things otherwise. So I
Mm.
totally get what you're saying. Okay, so Very, very interesting indeed. What about sort of things on? I mean, where do you see the future of this direction of travel here? We're
Love
talking
this
about
question.
people are saying, okay, it's going to be great for now, but is there a point where actually it starts eating into what people's work? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, so where we come from in recruitment marketing, most e-commerce companies like are still busy doing their transformation. But I mean, we're looking a lot into e-commerce as recruitment marketers. And over the past couple of years, we've seen recruitment marketing evolve from only replication. You follow me here, Ang? Through, I mean, ATS to auto publishing online to replication templating. So templating in this case means that the job content from the feed is run through custom ad templates to generate several pre-mutations of ads that are meaningful, more beautiful, engaging, and better at attracting talent and displaying employer brand and your corporate ID. So basically, everything evolves around personalization, right? So whether you are in e-commerce or in recruitment marketing, if you're in e-commerce, you have 1 billion items to display, right? And each of them concur with each other, but each has to have their unique buying experience. So if it's a shampoo or a piece of shoes, you have to display them in the most engaging way on all the most relevant platforms. And it's not about auto publishing because that has zero conversion. We have the exact same experience, but for each job. So for instance, our customer have thousands of openings. Some of them are similar, some of them almost on quite the same locations, but each has to have their unique ad variations and ad creations and experience in the end for the candidate. So to your question, we are moving to personalization and how we enhance that or reach that with the help of automation or tech. That's just a tool we augment, right? So yeah.
You know what, the key point you mentioned there, Sarah, is the fact that auto distribution, like we know that's like super ineffective in
Yeah.
terms of conversion rate.
Yeah.
Like we know that ultimately you press a button and it obviously multi-posts everywhere. Great. That saves you a bit of time.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately just making noise and it bounces off people's awareness. They're not
No
interested.
conversion. Yeah.
So AI, I think do you think AI will get to the point where it helps companies become like super personalized so that if something isn't personalized, it would be perceived as like it would no longer even have a chance. So for instance, if it's not super personalized, then it's got zero chance. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's AI taking us there. It's simply automation. AI is just like the next level if you want to take your rational decisions out of it. And some might argue there's no such thing as an AI. But okay, so for me, when it comes to, well, compare with yourself. Have you ever been on Instagram or anywhere else where you got an ad, right? And in that ad, you want to do the buy because you just got like 50% discount. It's a very trusted company. You've got a lot of different ads, nudging you to make that decision. So basically, if it's not talking to you, Hang, you would never spend a second on that ad. Why would you?
You actually, and by the way, I'm going to get into this because you just suggested something that, and I did actually buy something the first time ever
Naturally. Oh, okay.
on a
Well, you're a
TikTok.
millennial.
Do you know what? Seriously, I'd never ever. This is why I didn't give a damn for ad tracking at all. I didn't give a crap for privacy because I thought it was just totally overblown. It's like I'd never buy anything that Facebook shows me. So yeah, show me ads. I don't care. I just
Our
like get rid.
generation, like our Z setters, we hack the system. So
What do you
basically,
mean?
I want my discount code. So I would go to the site, put some items in the shopping basket, leave the form.
Ah.
What happens then, my friend, is that you get retargeted with a lot of offers. So us in our generation, we're just simply hacking the
Uh,
system. I would
this this
never buy anything on
this
price.
is where Sarah's revealed my age because I didn't even think about that. But of course, that's how you do it, folks.
Of
That's how you
course,
buy stuff.
that's how you
Put it
hack
into the
it.
shopping. Put it
Yeah,
into the shopping basket, but
yeah.
just never check out.
No,
Never check out,
would
and then you get
never.
hit with a retarget, and boom, you've
Call
got
me when it's
50% off.
Black Week or Black Month in November, and I'll show you how to hack
Oh,
everything.
hey, I tell you what, I bet this works on buying recruitment tech as well. Has everyone tried this,
Yes,
folks? Like if you're a buyer of recruitment technology, take it all the way to checkout and then just don't check out and see if you get hit with an offer.
And
Or
this,
some
my friends,
salesperson comes
in
back.
recruitment marketing, if you were to visit a lot of different career sites, like if you say we're going to Apple, right? Like you want to work in tech in Apple, visit their career site, accept the cookies, and wait.
Tell me, I'm on tenterhooks. What happens?
That means, so if they work smartly with automated social marketing, as they do with that way, they're tracking in place, making sure that the right audience is retargeted with a lot of relevant job offers. So basically, if you're someone out there looking to work at the coolest companies in your life, start visiting career sites and accepting cookies, and you're there, my friend.
There we go, folks. I need to learn a lot. I told you, marketers know what they're doing, don't they? Oh, by the way, we're back on LinkedIn. So thanks for people who were patient and hang around there. I think we had a 5-minute delay simply because we had a disconnect. It's been reconnected. You should be able to see it there.
Welcome, LinkedIn.
Yeah, welcome to all the folks on LinkedIn, all the 20 of you that hung around, even though we had hundreds of people signing up. What a catastrophe. Anyway, that's live streaming for you. Let's bring our guests on. Let's talk about this topic. We've got all these folks coming in. They're from recruitment tech vendors, essentially. And I wanted them to come in and what have you been doing with generative AI? Let's have a look at their examples and see what they've got to say for themselves. So let's bring on Martin Redston, our favorite friend, like the lonely evangelist on chatbots before everyone.
Why lonely?
He was banging on about it when it was uncool. So I'll give him credit
Welcome,
now.
Martin.
He's one of those that basically, was there just like constantly by himself, talking about chatbots. Now everyone needs to pile in. But we see Bobby Leonard here. Bobby, great to see you, sir. Wonderful to have you on the show. There's Sam Berthold as well. Great to see Sam as well.
Hey,
Bobby,
Sam.
Martin should be coming on. Whilst Martin's coming on, let's do some intros. Bobby, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm Bobby Leonard. I'm not Jamie Leonard. I'm the younger brother, the better-looking brother. I'm the managing director of the recruitment events company with a business behind RecFest and the Resourcing Leaders 100.
Amazing. And, a younger brother, better looking. You're an upgrade, mate. You're an upgrade. Okay, Sam, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, awesome. First off, Hung, thanks for having me on such a amazing episode, number 200, with old colleagues and peers. I'm Sam Bertu. I'm the director of account management at HackerJob. So it's potentially, I suppose I look after all existing relationships. That's what's under my remit. And we are a private marketplace for technical talent.
Fantastic stuff. And we have Martin Redston. Martin, great to see you, sir. Quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, so Martin Redston, as you said, for the last 6 years, I've been talking about chatbots and nobody's been listening to me. And now I'm redundant because everybody's an expert. But no, so what I'm doing at the minute, I actually founded a job board a couple of years ago that specializes in providing opportunities for people within conversational AI. So I spend a lot of time helping conversational AI professionals further and enhance their career.
Yeah, amazing. What a sweet spot. There you go. When you have faith in your vision, folks, just hang on in there because
just stick with it.
Market might just turn in your direction and
AI
suddenly
will come.
create newness.
Just stick with it. Just through thick and thin, and everyone laughing at you, just stick with it.
That's amazing. So listen, bit of context. The reason why I wanted to do this topic was actually because I went to RO100 2 weeks ago. Thanks for the invite to Bobby there. And we were talking about this topic, and it was really interesting for me because it has to be said, the recruitment leadership tier, we're really still at the amazement sort of point of ChatGPT and stuff like this. And I was thinking, that's great, but it's also not great because we need to kind of accelerate through this. And it's very, very important from my perspective that recruiters really embrace and adopt these new tools, techniques, and so forth. Otherwise, we're going to just get wiped out. And I just thought that, the TA leadership, and this is no disrespect for anybody in the leadership position, but I just wonder whether if you're sort of in charge of a very large department, you're doing all the strategic work, you're in the C-level, you're doing all that stuff, you might be so distant from the tooling that you've now kind of got yourself distant from the technology, which now is not the moment, because this is a big change. You have to dive back into the weeds. And it was in conversation with Bobby and Sam, actually, that kind of sparked, because you guys knew what you're talking about. I was thinking, holy crap, maybe the people who are on the vendor side actually have just got more initiative, more motivation to embrace it now, because they can see it as a lead generation opportunity, a way to do marketing more efficiently, a way to do personalization more efficiently. So dove in and maybe 6 months or so ahead of where we're at with compared to TA. So hence why you guys are on screen with us today. Let's talk to you firstly, Bobby. You're managing a business that does a lot of marketing. Of course you do. You do events, right? So half of it is putting it on, and half of it is getting tickets sold, sponsors in, etc. So you must do all the CRM stuff. You do all the marketing stuff, etc., etc. Tell me about your journey with generative AI generally, and with ChatGPT specifically. When did you encounter it, and how have you started like feathering it into the work you do on the marketing side?
Yeah, definitely. Cheers for the hung. We do a lot of marketing. Like, you know, we're 2, 3, sometimes 4 emails, social campaigns a week at the moment. I guess we're still in the embryonic stage with ChatGPT. Like, we've just convinced the marketing team to start using it as a tool. We use it for a lot of refinement. You know, we sanity check. You know, we're in an industry where there's not a huge amount of event businesses that work in this space. So sometimes we just need to sound off, right, and make sure that we're delivering the right level of content out to our audience. But yeah, we've used it for a ton of things. I mean, the one that everyone seems to go to is, you know, writing copy, you know, refining copy and getting stuff together like that. And that's great. And I think, you know, we've used it for some stuff. I've got a good example of why I feel like this is definitely a route that I'm going to keep pursuing myself personally. So the last couple of weeks, we've done a couple of campaigns on LinkedIn for Wreckfest around the ticket sales. I spent an hour and a half writing a LinkedIn post to my wife one evening, getting ready to send it out, and really excited. I used emojis, you know, I went full flood on it, and then it ended up getting like 6 likes and a couple of comments. And I said to Vix, oh, it's just heartbreaking, mate. I then went to the marketing team and I was like, right, I'm not spending any time writing this. I'm going to plug it into ChatGPT. I'm going to use the first result that comes out, and I'm going to post it. And it got close to 100 likes, right? And it was like for like the same thing. So I don't know what beats I missed, but I took a lot of learnings away from that. And I think for me, I think that's at this stage, this early stage, I think that's what we're starting to understand is it's like it's learning, right? It's increasing the learning curve for our team, like their own development around how they write copy, what's effective. So when you use it to generate something, you know, don't just generate it, ask it what makes it successful, what's going to make it a good post. You know, that's where the key learnings are for the individuals that are using it. So as long as we kind of
you're basically prompt engineers now, like that's what you're doing it.
Getting there, yeah, getting
before
there.
Wreckfest, we have a bunch of prompt engineers.
We'll be
prompt engineering 101, make this better for me. Yeah.
That's actually not bad advice. Like, you could literally tell it to improve it or make it more readable.
If you have the best prompt at heart to start with, you don't even have to.
Well, maybe we should do a show on that. Like, what are the best prompts to actually do for certain use cases? I haven't seen a library of those created yet, but it probably would be a useful thing to try and put together. I haven't seen specifically for recruiting, but I think it might be useful. I mean, you tell me, audience, would you be interested in the show where we kind of just broke it down, say, here are the best prompts for posting an advert, here are the best prompts for putting together a Boolean search, here are the best prompts for, you know, talking to your boss about a raise or something. Let me know in the comments whether you're interested in that type of show. But okay, copy improvement, that's the basics, right? I mean, everyone knows how to do that. Just fire it up there. Simply ask the question on what you want to produce. At the worst case, it's going to save you some typing time and produce a draft for you that you can use. But best case, and the best case is not a long shot, it's actually going to produce you like really usable stuff. You can copy paste and do a slight amend, and it's out there. And the reason why it knows why copy works is because obviously it's ingested the information from stuff that has worked before, and therefore it can just replay it faster and better than we can. So copywriting, obviously, thing that we should use it and adopt. Go to you, Martin, on this. You've got probably more room to kind of experiment in a more radical way, simply because you're working kind of in the specialist role. You can almost, you could excuse playing with ChatGPT as your research or as your job.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's like, it's all work for you. So when you came across this, in the first, when you first arrived, when was that, and how have you started feathering it into the work that you do?
Oh, it's such a good question. So actually, I've been playing around with large language models for coming up to 3 years now, because they're not a new thing. So as I kind of said, in one of our previous shows on ChatGPT, they're not a new thing, but the fact that OpenAI put a chat interface on the front of a large language model made it as popular as it is. So there's lots of things that I'm working on when it comes to large language models. The ones that I think are interesting for the audience today, and actually, it's something that when you did those kind of first 3 sessions on ChatGPT, that a lot of people were saying to me, why hasn't anyone talked about recruitment marketing? Because we were focusing on sources and tech companies and all those kind of things. And ultimately, generative AI is exactly that. It's about generating something, generating text from text, generating image from text, generating text from image. So all of this plays really, really nicely into the hands of creatives and into the hands of marketers and copywriters and all those kind of things. For me, in my world, something that's really cool when you're, without going into the technicalities of building chatbots, when you're building chatbots, you have to give, for conversational AI based chatbots, you have to give it training data. So you have to say, look, here's the 72 different ways that somebody's going to say hello to you. So for me, I can go on to ChatGPT or something similar and say, can you give me 20 different ways that somebody might want to order a pizza or somebody might want to apply for a job? And I get all of that data and I can throw it straight into my my learning algorithms within whatever chatbot platform I'm building on. And I've got that there. So it speeds up that thought process of going, oh, how would somebody, ask this information, or how would somebody start this conversation? So designing actual kind of conversations has become a lot easier for us. So for me, that's kind of super interesting. But ultimately, like I said, generative AI is about generating something, whether it be text, image, code, video, audio, etc., etc. So it plays really nicely into the hands of marketers.
Yeah, it's about. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with Martin. Like, it's definitely about, again, personalization at scale, unique ads in this case, or unique, candidate experience, or unique chat experiences.
Well, just as a philosophical point, also, we can think of knowledge work, quote unquote, as essentially the production of media of some type, right? If you're sitting in front of a keyboard and you're looking at a screen, you are producing some media of some type, some digital output. And here we have this thing which could be friend or foe, maybe both, because it's here to help us produce more at scale, as you say, Sarah, at better quality, as you referred to, Bobby. But is there such a point where it becomes so good and so effective that it might actually eat into the world of work? We'll talk about that a little bit later, because we're talking more at this point about the application of it at this point. So let's go to you, Sam. So you're working probably adjacent on the marketing side, but they're definitely overlapping, right? So you're doing partnership stuff, and you've obviously done sales before in your time. So I think partnership sits right in between sales, marketing, and CRM. So tell us what you've when you encountered generative AI at Hacker Jobs, and when did you and what have you done with it in terms of like making your job easier and advancing the cause for Hacker Job?
Yeah, I think first off, to Martin's point at the start, there's definitely this kind of Dunning-Kruger effect right now in the marketplace of, people kind of wanting to have that expertise, and I'm not going to come from that position as if I have it. I think what's really important, Hung, to your point, is like that embracing it and engaging with it on your day to day, and how can you apply it and augment what you're doing. And I think the best example I have personally is playbook creation, right? So we're a rapidly growing business across multiple markets, and I want to make sure we've got a really comprehensive and consistent onboarding process. And previously, I'd talk people through, I'd have slides, I'd have, some light guides, but I'm an orator, right? I like to speak, I like to talk things through, not necessarily document and process. And, Bobby can throw a wry smile on my documentation and process because we worked together for so many years. And what GPT allowed me to do was essentially take those bullet points, run it through the system, create a series of playbooks. And I had that aha moment, right? I think everybody, the first time they touched it was like, this is seriously powerful, right? This is something which is going to change the game. And then I had that secondary aha moment where I was like, you know what, this probably would have taken me a couple of months. This is doing my job. Oh, this is doing my job. So I think, as individuals, anybody working in any industry right now, it's like, how can you make sure that you've got a handle on this and you're holding it with both hands and driving that direction forwards? I think in terms of like HackerJob as a vendor and how we're using it, I'm probably not the person to speak about that. We've definitely got some pieces in our back office where we've been using it. Our customers will have seen faster feature rollouts for sure, with a GitHub Copilot and with ChatGPT, it enables engineers to build more amazing things and more amazing features. And obviously there's a lot of movement in the space right now. And I think that's that tipping point, right? How can you make sure that what you're doing is something that's truly valuable, that's adding to the customer experience, that's adding to the candidate experience in a reverse marketplace, as opposed to, hey, guess what? We've got ChatGPT 2. It's a bit like, I can't remember what that thing was called, that social media thing that came out during lockdown.
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse, right? And it's like any of these kind of things.
The new shiny object.
And it's new shiny object, and every tool jumps on it and thinks, how's Clubhouse going to impact recruitment? How's X going to impact recruitment?
Yeah.
I think what is very, very different about generative AI as a segment and as a kind of movement almost is whenever you show an example, whenever you show somebody, they go like wide-eyed, they can't believe what's in front of them, and it's so powerful. And largely, even if it's inaccurate, it looks so accurate in its creation and its display that you could fool somebody anyway. So like perception is even more powerful than reality. And I think that's the piece for me which signals this is something that every vendor and every recruiter and every person in almost every working environment, knowledge jobs or not, can use. And I think the knowledge job or not is an example I use. I was at a kid's birthday party, and all I speak about is generative AI.
My attention.
Sitting there talking to one of the dads, and he does shop fitting. He's a project manager and he does shop fitting up and down the country. And he goes, yeah, it sounds great, like it looks great, but like how could I use it? And I said, what's your next shop fit? And he was like, oh, it's a Pure Gym in Sutton. And actually, if Pure Gym are listening, he definitely didn't write the project plan for that. He was dedicated, ran through all the normal procedures, and he wrote it out. And then he started to put the nuance of his industry into it. And that's when I was even more blown away. It's like, so wait a minute, this is actually supporting jobs with your hands out there, and actually contingency plans for something goes wrong in stage 2. And that was, again, I think outside of recruitment marketing, that's why everybody needs to pay attention, because it's definitely a game changer, right? It's one of those internet moments.
Has anyone downloaded the mobile app on, because I had it as a kind of a web app on my phone, but you can actually download it on mobile now. Or for plus anyway, I pay for it anyway. Because I pretend to be ahead of the game by spending money, even though I don't have time to use it. The auto music generator thing. I just say, I'll pay 100 quid a year. Let's give it. I haven't switched it on once. But anyway, it makes me feel a little bit better that I'm on top of it. But once you can speak to the damn thing, that's what I'm waiting for. Once it goes sort of voice to text and text, it can actually output. Then it's great, because right now I'm getting even annoyed at the typing, even though the output is 10 times what I would normally type myself. So our expectations are getting increasingly elevated as to what it's going to output
quite rapidly.
I think that application. Go on, Martin. Go.
No, I was going to say on the web app you can just do that, because if you've got a smartphone, your keyboard will you can just talk instead of type. Just to kind of
Does it
And I was
work?
going to say on
Does-
that, I was going to say on, and we've got Michael on call, which would be interesting to get his perspective on it as a tool that records interviews, right? There's obviously tools which record sales conversations, and I know sales leaders are using those transcripts, to improve that kind of customer experience. And actually, can you summarize that conversation? Yes. Can you then, create the basis of an email response? Yes. With some, fairly basic scripting, which you can get from ChatGPT itself, could you connect that conversation and create an email that automatically is like pre-prepared after you finish a call? And again, I think it's
crazy.
Then how can you make sure that you're spending more time having those conversations with people, using that human interaction, being able to contextualize your environment? It's definitely fascinating. So that speech is kind of there, right? You've got transcripting tools which are out there, and if you can join the threads up, or as simply as Martin says, on your keyboard on your phone, right?
This is where sort of the OpenAI plugin is so significant, because already I can see, let's say I have the sales transcription software, it's Hone It or something like that I'm using, that spits out some copy that ultimately from the conversation that we've got. I can connect that to Zapier. Let's say Zapier, I can tell Zapier to say, right, take this copy, convert it into an email and send it to this person immediately after the call, and then boom, the follow-up is sorted. I mean, how crazy? I mean, I would say someone's probably already implemented that at this point straight away. That's a multi-stage process that took time. Go ahead. Who's going to say it? Mine?
No, I was going to say you just have to be aware that there are limits to the number of tokens that you can pump through the API at any one time. So anyone who wants to go and get an otter, anyone who wants to get an otter transcript and throw it into ChatGPT, you're going to be anything more than about 4,000 words, you're going to be stuffed really. So just you'll then have to split it out, which you can do with some prompt training and what have you. Or PDF it,
We do that already. We do that. So we will get transcripts from Zoom, and we will plug that into ChatGPT to not just get feedback, but to like write a follow-up email. Draft me a follow-up email, and we'll send it across. I think that for me, the exciting thing in the future, and how you mentioned the plugins there. I mean, the second HubSpot has a proper in-depth plugin for ChatGPT, the possibilities for workflows, which is what I'm excited about, is endless, right? You think about how consumers use decision trees with email marketing, make it infinite. That's exactly what you're going to get.
Has anybody used the plugin yet? I've applied and joined the waitlist. Nothing's happening. So
I've had a play around, and I've seen a lot of other people having play arounds as well, but I don't think it's really available yet commercially. So everyone's waiting for it.
Yeah, if you're sort of watching this, whether you're on LinkedIn or on Crowdcast, on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you're watching this, let me know whether you've got access to the plugins. I think there's a wait list. You can't just use it, right? So if you've got access, let me know. I mean, have you done anything interesting with it? It would be cool to, surface up some examples to how it's made things a bit more efficient. It seems to me there's certain keystone apps that are going to work, like the Zapiers of this world. Zapier, by the way, is an app that plugs in other apps that can kind of create event triggers, essentially. And you can imagine this changing how companies build software now, because you're going to have to build a plugin that's suitable for it's almost like a new app store's been rolled out without Apple or Android even being aware of it. You just like rolled it out, and it's a small startup, and now everyone's got to think, oh shit, we have to build so that we can interact with this, because everyone is going to use it. Crazy.
Well, just imagine.
Go Martin. But to me, I'm just like tying the whole topic together. To me, I mean, yes, OpenAI is generative AI. It's basically, it has no intelligence. It's just like, putting the puzzle together. So coming in for this angle with us in TA, it's basically around being the prompters. Whatever tech we are utilizing here, we need to be like bold enough to not just do the basics. Like the basic prompter ever would be craft me a sales pitch from this Zoom meeting, right? Now it's about whatever mood you might be after that meeting, like the personalization down to detailed level, acknowledging the details that the prospect said or whatever. So I think we should be far beyond just like, using it as a machine, but more again, like how can this be me? as me.
So
So you're not just prompting it for the facts.
And just on that point, I think it's that, you go back to Voltaire and the French Revolution, right? It was always that phrase of, judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. And I think it's very much, it is the prompt that you're putting in, and it is the way in which you're asking the question. That's how humans are still involved, right? We still have a better processing power than the biggest supercomputer to contextualize the situation around us and ask the right questions. It's, can we augment and can we make those answers better or faster?
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting to your point, Hung. You said before recruitment marketing, you said like, oh, AI will be, revolutionizing how we make sure that we have the perfect like ad creation, or in this is canned experience. But it's like sometimes, yes, we use generative AI with our, unique proposition when we design, the canned experience and these different ad campaigns. But at some points, the humans are still better because we can do different analysis, or we have different like knowledge within this field. So it's not just the machine, it's always the combination or how you're prompting or like leveraging the processes.
This is exactly the point of what Microsoft has done with their Copilot. So it's about plugging in your organization's data graph, your large language model, and your Office 365 productivity apps, and saying, okay, well, now I've got a Copilot, a conversational Copilot that has reach over that, still not going to make the final decisions on things, but it's about saying, bring me up data for this customer over the last 12 months, and put this into an Excel sheet and do this analysis on it. So it's going back to the pure basics of automation, which is removing the grunt work, removing the stuff that ultimately is low value thinking time, and allowing an AI Copilot to do that for you, so that you can do the higher value things, like Sarah said, in terms of making those more kind of human based decisions or intuitions that AI just yet can't do.
Did anyone hear Sam Atwell? I can't remember what podcast he was on, but a couple of months ago, he kind of talked about his vision for what he saw ChatGPT being in the future for white collar workers. And one example stood out with me, and I still think about it to this day. But we all know Google has that feature, right, where it can recommend like the next couple of words to a sentence, potentially finish off an email or whatnot. He said in the future, he'd want you to wake up in the morning, log into your inbox, have all of your emails prioritized, like in terms of importance, based off the data you've got, and 3 or 4 responses drafted up, a positive, a negative, and a neutral, and potentially a fourth one, which you just choose which one do you want to send, which one do you want to go back to those clients. But they're using the language and the data from the 100,000 plus emails that you've sent, from that inbox, essentially.
Exactly.
So that then leads into, and this is just a dream I had quite recently, actually, where we
dreaming about
plugged
ChatGPT now.
Mate,
We've all been there.
I had a dream that we plugged in all of the data from Slack and my email account, and then we just set up a Slack chatbot that was just powered by ChatGPT and just answering questions from the team. I didn't have to be there. It was scary. It's scary.
Well, I mean, and then you go back to that Black Mirror episode, right? I don't know if anybody watched Black Mirror, and it is almost exactly that from a few years ago. Your partner dies, you log all of the conversations, you get all of their language models, you put them into a synthetic body, and that person lives on forever and responds in the same way, right?
I can see
it's done in the real world now. Yeah, it's happened already.
I saw an example earlier today, actually, about this. This guy actually wrote what he called a grief bot. And it was about, I think it was his grandfather had passed on, but he fed the information, sort of his grandfather's speaking style into the language model, essentially to then have a conversation with his grandfather who had passed on. And he said ultimately he deleted the bot afterwards because he said he just wanted to have closure on it, but he just was quite disturbed also that he was interacting with sort of an entity that spoke like his grandfather. Now you can imagine this actually going forward, like the digital immortality is going to happen. I mean, you've seen the interview that Joe Rogan did with Steve Jobs, which was obviously entirely fake. But if you were listening to the first time, you would have no clue because Steve Jobs, it was definitely him, or shall we say, it was his tenor, it was his pitch, it was everything as he would deliver it. And then it was Joe Rogan, who obviously everyone's heard of, and then they mashed together. So we're at this really strange place where it's almost like the heroes that we used to have in the pre-AI era. I think they've already been established. I think the movie star is finished, for instance, because we're going to prefer, I want to see Marilyn Monroe. I want to see John Wayne have a fight with, Rock Hudson whilst Marilyn Monroe's riding King Kong or something. Like, you can see that.
See, now we were worried about prompt engineers, but there's one
Recruitment
right there for a new
marketing.
creative
So
field.
you could create that movie. You could absolutely create that movie, and there's no human actor is going to be better than seeing all that stuff. Because I think that ultimately, have we reached the point where personal branding is over because you can just draft in brands from like history? Have a think about that if you're marketing, right? Like, what if you manage to create a deal with the avatar of Einstein or something, and that's your spokesperson? Possible, right?
There's a couple of points that I'd like to make on that, actually. The first one is that obviously, if anyone's seen the latest Top Gun movie, you might not know, but Val Kilmer's voice was all AI generated because he's got throat cancer. So that's just an interesting tidbit there around what you were saying, Hung. But actually, what this does is it opens up some really interesting moral and ethical questions that have been debated, within the industry. Microsoft recently announced that they've got an AI model that can regenerate somebody's voice with 3 seconds of audio sampling. So for voice biometrics, some banking systems, will only let you into your bank account, if you can prove you are who you are through voice banking. So voice biometrics totally and utterly destroyed by this. There's so much, on your Facebook group, yesterday I posted up about the latest report from Stanford about AI, and there's a lot of information in there around some of the darker sides of what's going on with deep fakes and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of moral and ethical questions around AI. We've seen lots of negative news items recently about, unfortunately, a man committing suicide because he was talked into it by an AI, all those kind of things. And so whilst we kind of talk about the positives in terms of generating, we also need to think about the negatives in terms of generating as well.
Exactly.
And not only the terrible things I mentioned, but also things like copyright issues that are going on and all those kind of things. So there are some pros and cons when it comes to AI that we need to be reticent of, and we really need to think about as well, and open up that discussion.
And I think you could spend weeks and months and honestly, governments need to be having these conversations. Big tech needs to be having these conversations. Obviously, there was that, open letter signed. I think on the lighter side, because there's obviously a lot of ethical issues around it. On the lighter side, I saw something really heartwarming in the week, which was a ChatGPT plugin for somebody who was visually impaired. And essentially they could bring their phone to the fridge. And it scanned all the items in the fridge and not just told them what was in the fridge, the best before dates, those types of things, but actually suggested recipes and, where to reach in the fridge to get those items, and really guided, an individual around their own home for, became their eyes, right? And I think those sort of advancements in medical care, could be exponential, right? So I think there's always two sides to every coin. It's a bit like the internet, right? The internet definitely had this two-way battle when it first kind of came to light, and it's lived on.
But that also comes back to the prompting. I mean, not sharing sensitive information. It's back to the prompting. So you have to be quite general in what you teach it with as well. So yeah, good point.
I think it's interesting where we're at, because the ethics of it is something we'll talk about. In fact, we'll talk about that in a minute because we're running out of time, as we always do. Folks, we always want to try and do this in the middle of every show. We're going to keep doing it simply because Brainfood Live does have to come off air. I know it's like tragic that happens, but yes, we do need to come off air at some point. However, it's meant to be a conversation starting show. It should never be a bottleneck for the conversation. So if you've enjoyed the chat so far, now is the time for you to connect with everyone else who's part of this show. So take a moment, get a hold of your LinkedIn URL and put it into the chat stream on Crowdcast if you're watching it here. If you're watching it on LinkedIn, take your personal LinkedIn URL and share it into the comment thread there, and then make sure you connect with everyone who's done likewise. Worst case scenario is that you exit from this conversation not only like entertained and informed, but also you can walk away 5, 6, 7, half a dozen people or so that you can follow up with and have that conversation going forward. By the way, there's regulars on the show that turn up every week, and I'm sure they're walking away with like boosted networks as a result of this. So please take advantage of it. Go ahead and share, but don't forget to connect with everybody. Send those requests. Okay, we're going to do questions in a minute. So if you've got any questions for the panelists, please use ask a question feature at the bottom of the screen. If you're on LinkedIn, just ask a question on comments. We're going to get to that in a second. Let's talk a little bit about sort of where we stand on the ethics side before we hit those questions. Obviously, the open letter, quite interesting to see where the polling was. I don't know whether you saw it. I did a poll for the Recruitment Brainfood community, 200 votes. And there was, I might as well pull it up. I think there was something like 58% of recruiters said, you know what, we don't want to pause the advancement, the innovation rate. We want to keep pushing forward, but we do want to potentially tap the brakes a bit on this. In other words, slow it down. Because it seems that every day something happens and it's like stunning. What are your thoughts on this? Should there be some sort of break, or do you think, you know what, this has crashed through? Bill Gates has just come out, I think a couple of days ago, and said, listen, actually 6 months ain't going to do much. Firstly, you can't police it. Someone else is going to crash through anyway. And secondly, what the problem you think you're going to solve in 6 months is still going to be there. So you might as well rush through it. Forward, only forward. What's your views on this? Let's go with you first, Martin. Do we just slow down, speed up, let it just hands free it? What's your view?
Just take the handbrake off and let it go. I think I think ultimately OpenAI is only one organization doing this out of many. You're not going to be able to stop innovation. And why stop innovation? Just get on with it, see where it goes. But just have a sensible brain on you as you go through it.
Yep, very good. How about you, Sam? What's your thoughts?
Free market economics, what's ever gone wrong? I think that the challenge here is, does it disproportionately, impact society? And I think that's why we need to be careful moving into this next space, but it's impossible to be so, right? In the same way as the internet age, that you can't put guardrails on something. I think the only thing that will slow the pace potentially is legislation. And action, that governments can take. But even then, there'll still be people accessing and using because it's powerful, right? So, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yep. So basically, practical impediment, it's going to be impossible to stop. How about you, Bobby? What's your attitude to this?
I mean, full steam ahead, right? Like, the internet created a gateway where content's out there, coding's out there. You're not going to stop it. Like, ultimately, there's always a way around things. I know that OpenAI, when they launched specifically, the reason they held back on OpenAI, the reason they held back on the Open API was because of the risk, like, of that getting out, right? So they refused to put it out. And even now, you have to apply for it. You go through a process, and then eventually you get what you need to do. You can't just grab that link and start working on it. So, yeah, I think there is they're being cautious, and others will be as well. But ultimately, you're never going to stop it.
Well, actually, arguably, Google were caught short because they did throttle it. Because they did remember DeepMind and remember all that stuff. They actually had all of this in the locker, but they never productized it in a sufficient way. You could argue that's because Google haven't been shipping anything for years. You could argue on that side. But you could also argue maybe they had some deep ethical issues that didn't overcome it, and they basically got gazumped by OpenAI. And now they're rushing
eats into ad revenue, and it eats into ad revenue massively, right? It's an ad-free search at the moment.
That's right. Sarah, let's go to you. Found word. Just slow this down. Just speed it up. What do you do?
Get tech comfortable. Make technology your best friend, and just be cautious around it. Know what you're prompting. Again, you're feeding it, so be cautious what your sensitive information you're putting in. But this was radically, they will change your methods forever. So be aware, be cautious, be conscious. Be on it, not being afraid of letting it stopping you. You're already, you're not going to be changed out by a machine, but you will absolutely 100% be sort of in competition with someone who are tech comfortable.
Yeah, get tech comfortable. So I just imagine it on a surfboard. You can't stop the wave. Just get good on the board, folks. That's what you got to do. You know, get good on the board. Okay, let's get on to these questions here. We've got 3 of them coming in, so I'm just going to do them in order. So we've got a question from Tushar Modessa. Tushar, what are your thoughts on video content through campaigns? How easy is it, and how can personalization still be factored in? So I guess one of the arguments is that actually video is a good way to still do the authenticity, because it's basically harder to fake. Even if there is deepfake opportunities, it's simply harder to produce, certainly more expensive. So, but how does the video make more prominent in this case? So how easy is it to get video into campaigns, and how can you personalize it? Does it have to be one to many? Let's go. Go on, Sarah. You answer this one.
Well, so in our case, we're more working with like motion ads per se. So for instance, we're fetching all the jobs, you know, for the ATSs, and they are not the sexiest ones building in the ATS. You have to, again, build a canned experience for each platform. So for TikTok example, I mean, for example, or in Reels format on Instagram, that is what's needed, right? So it is absolutely possible when you're just like taking items or titles that could be sort of built into animation. So it's 100% possible, but in terms of like making a whole movie, like we're not there, but we are making it like digestible in another feature, basically. So it's actually stands out in the feed.
Yeah, very good. So there's ways to do video. You can basically animate stuff. You can stitch a bunch of images together. That's an animation. So you don't necessarily need like a person's face. You can definitely do it more efficiently than perhaps we assume. Okay, let's move on. We have a question from Florentia. Florentia is saying, okay, how do you think of having 24/7 platforms with personalized videos to answer questions from candidates? Do you think it would be achievable? So this is a vision, right? So let's say it's an FAQ, but there's an avatar there. Actually, is it a personalized video? I mean, maybe it's just someone like me, that a deep fake hung or something, answering back.
Tengai Hung.
Tengai Hung. Is that even possible? I don't know.
That's a cool name. Tengai
Hung. That's a sound of a band. Okay. Tengai, by the way, one of our friends in Sweden, they've just released this product, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which is essentially a avatar that can respond with kind of ChatGPT type responses, but vocalized, and then with the animated videos. So I think that's available. Check them out. Okay, let's find a question again from Florence here. In your opinion, are we very far away? Are we very far from AI being more inclusive? So this is a very important question. Where are we with DE and I when it comes to AI? We've got time for everyone to have an answer at this, so keep it brief, please. But what's your thoughts on answering this question? Let's go to you, Martin, firstly.
I refute the notion that AI is biased because of the people that are developing it are biased. I think that I've proven recently through a video comparing different prompts that you can actually create content that removes biased language. So I don't actually think AI is biased. I think it's just based on how you use it.
Right. Exactly. Very good. So Martin, strong defense. It doesn't matter about the demographics of the people building it as much as people assume, because you can still configure the output by your prompts to produce the output you want. Okay, Bobby, your answer to this question?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, I think you only have to look at the data set that it's learning on, right? Instinctively, all data is going to be biased in some form. It's just how you work with that to get the best results. And I agree. I see a lot of companies, raining on the parade of ChatGPT because it's biased, but ultimately they're putting in one prompt and they're going, right, that's my copy, and they're not asking it questions, they're not doing dialogue. So yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think it matters. You can work with the data you've got.
Yeah. So basically, look, we have to accept that the training data is going to be biased because it's basically ingested from some biased source. It's impossible to have a bias-free set of data. Therefore, the outputs are always going to be skewed in that way. It's up to you as the user to produce the output you want. Okay, Sam, your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I unfortunately lean in the other camp. I think because there's so much training data that is based on more developed economies with wider access to education, with wider access to internet access, producing more, I suppose, university grade documentation. Like, I think it's inherently biased. And obviously the language learning model is largely based on English language, right? Because it is the most commonly used online. So yeah, I think there's inherent bias there. And I think for it to be inclusive, everybody needs internet access, right? Everybody needs access to the same level of ChatGPT. And there's a price tag for having unlimited prompts, right? And then you think there's price tags to every AI tool that's out there. And you need, access to high-speed internet, to run proper, like full-on programs if it's video editing or creation. So I think it's naturally got its barriers, which in the same way the internet has. And yeah, that's kind of my view.
Yep. Thank you, Sam, for popping the bubble and getting us out of the echo chamber. Absolutely right. ChatGPT, guess what? It's in English. It is predominantly being built by English language first software engineers, and it's ingesting English language first internet. So is there an Arabic ChatGPT, for instance? Do we know about that? We need to see it, because otherwise, as you say, Sam, it's basically feeding off a single culture's way of thinking around the world. What we probably need, if we're brave enough, is to think about a world where we have a diverse set of AIs coming from different sort of language groups, different cultures, and different sort of historical contexts, and maybe they can interact with each other in some way.
An AI aggregator, a cross-culture AI aggregator. Yeah.
And watch out for the AI feminist. I'm looking forward to her.
Right, feminists get building it. It'll be amazing to see it. Why
all
not
the
have
historic moments with women? Whoa, look out!
Like eliminate all the men from the training data. Like all this stuff. I think I would have no problem with it. It's like, so long as you know that is coming from this angle, it'd be like, okay, straight away you would know it's coming from here, and it could be useful, like contribution to the voices and the opportunities that we all have. Sarah, final word to you. Your thoughts on this? Are we very far away from AI being inclusive? Where are we now? What's the situation?
It's a good question. Absolutely. I think it sits with you. You're sort of the author of the machine again. So if you're not aware about your prompting, that's the problem in itself. You have to be super cautious when you're prompting, and you have to be sort of not trusting in the first possible answer because it's not intelligent enough. So you have to be like aware where it's coming from and challenge that, and perhaps also feed it inclusively back.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some evidence that that's already happened. I don't know whether when the very first sort of ChatGPT was released, obviously there's a bunch of right wingers in the US started interrogating it, and they surfaced the very first claims against inclusivity was actually from the right wing that was saying, look, this is too woke, which is why Elon Musk was banging on about truth GPT or something. So, and by the way, what's the reinforcement? It's reinforcement learning through human sort of editing or whatever. So there's a human being there saying, no, don't give me that answer, give me this answer. So we're already trying to remove bias from it. But then bias is kind of working in a kind of hierarchical opposite. You go up a level, there's someone else that's going to point that your de-biasing effort is itself bias. So we have a kind of a never-ending infinite regression there. All right, listen, lots to think about. Thank you very much for your questions. I think we're out of time here, folks. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for taking part. Great to see our guests, Martin Redston, Sam Bertu, Bobby Leonard, and Sarah Dalsfeld. Thank you so much for joining us on this. Follow the channel if you're interested in this type of conversational content. We'll be back after the Easter break. We are going to be talking about generative AI again. This time we are going to be talking about particular prompt examples that you can use for recruiting. So we're going to be building a library of prompts for the activity of recruiting. Make sure you sign up for that. If you are a recruiter and want to dive in, this is the show for you. We'll be back on Friday next week. So that's it from us. Have a very good Easter holiday break, folks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you all.
Thank you for having us, Hung.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
Wasn't that great, folks? Hope you enjoyed it. I have got a few more calls to make, but then it is also a break for me. So have a very good Easter, folks. I'll see you back on... Actually, I'll see you on Sunday. I'm sending a newsletter.